Hi, my name is Lindsey Leichthammer. I'm an event producer and food stylist in the Burlington, Vermont area. Today I'm going to show you 3 easy to make food boards that you can bring to get-togethers or for game day, and all of the food and products you see here are available at the University Mall in South Burlington. So when you're thinking about your flavor profile for a cheese and charcuterie board, it's always a great idea to think about balancing flavors. The flavors we want to think about is balancing your salty items, sweet items, spicy items, and all of your fat. So the fat comes from the creaminess in all of your cheeses. Our salty items, we have Castelvetrano olives, some cornichons, salty Marcona almonds, which are so good, some prosciutto and speck. And then our sweet items, we have a variety of fruits, some mandarin oranges, Welch's grapes, and some fig jam. Our spicy item is this Mike's Hot Honey, which I love. And then, of course, we need a means of conveyance, so we have some baguette and some cracker options here too. So when you're putting together a cheese and charcuterie board, it's important to think about setting the stage on the board. So I like to start with a cutting board. I typically go for something that's round in shape. I just find that it looks more aesthetically pleasing. And I use some garnishes. So I have some lacinato kale here. I have some mandarin oranges that still have the leaves on them, big bunches of grapes. So I'll arrange those kind of asymmetrically on the board to start before we start layering in our cheeses and fruits and other items. And then start with a big bunch of grapes. I typically like to think about my color scheme. So today I thought the red grapes, they looked really nice in the store, so I grabbed some of these. We can also want to make sure that we're hiding any of these stems in the back too. And let's add in 1 orange just to be cute. So now that we've kind of set our stage for our cheese and charcuterie board, I start setting in some of the larger items. So I have a few small bowls here that I'll drop in, usually one for almonds and then one for olives. I find that keeping those separate always works pretty well. And then we can start adding some of our cheeses. So I like to be a little bit picky about how I lay them out. I want them to make sure that they look aesthetically pleasing, and they're also close by to the things that you want to pair them with. So I like to have the honey close to the blue cheese, the fig jam close to the brie, and then we kind of scatter the berries and prosciutto and other things throughout. So we'll start with our largest piece, the brie. My secret for blue cheese is I usually get 2. I like to have one that's whole, and then the other piece I like to crumble up with a fork or a knife, and then put the crumbles on top so that it's a little bit more easily accessible, but it adds a lot of texture. I also like the color variation in blue cheese. I find it pretty. So next we have some Cabot cheddar. I don't love that it just comes in a square rectangle, so I like to vary the shape a little bit. So I'll put it on its side and kind of cut it at an angle into 2 wedges, and then I think it just makes it a little bit more interesting. Again, being finicky about the layout and where that cheese all ends up. The rest of the cheddar you can just kind of cut into small pieces, and you can put on top just like the blue cheese. And then last we'll just add in the goat. Okay, so now that we've placed all of our cheeses, it's time to add our meats and some of our accoutrements. So I have a bunch of prosciutto here. I like the prosciutto just to kind of be in a little pile. I feel like if you try to overdo it, it can look exactly that. It looks a little overdone. I also have some copa here, and there's really no right or wrong way to do this. It's really just kind of layering in pieces and having fun while you do it. Now let's add in some of our sweet elements. So we have a few pears, some figs that I'll cut open, some berries, both blueberries and blackberries. For interest and color variation, especially with figs and blackberries, they have a really great color on the inside. So while I serve some of them whole, it's also nice to cut them open, and they have some beautiful color on the inside. Figs go great when they're wrapped in prosciutto, so you can tuck in a few of them over there, and then otherwise they're really just accessories. My other kind of rule of thumb is I like things to look like organized chaos, which there is a rhyme and reason, but then it looks effortless and kind of like you just threw some handfuls of things together, but you've done it in such a way that it looks pretty and composed. We have to add in our fig jam. We can do that on the side, and our little jar of hot honey. We can tuck that in there. Fill in some of the space with some pieces of dried mango. And now with all of these kind of little dead spaces where we still see some of the cutting board, that's a great space to use a lot of your berries. You can kind of fill in so that you don't end up seeing any of that cutting board on the bottom for your final presentation. And then we have your finished cheese board. Okay, so next up we have a smoked salmon platter, which is my favorite go-to for a brunch. We have all of the traditional accompaniments, so we'll have heirloom tomatoes, some sliced cucumber, chopped egg, capers, lemons, some fresh dill and red onion, and then we'll serve those with some everything bagel and some sliced baguette. Okay, so now that we have all of our ingredients prepared, it's time to assemble. My method for how I go about this is it's all supposed to just look like one composed piece of art. So I do start with our cream cheese options. We have a regular and a vegetable, and then I just smear it on the board, and then we'll put the salmon in the center. And sometimes I like to break it up into pieces so that when your guests are trying to serve themselves, they have an easier time being able to grab pieces. Okay, so now that we have all of our main components on the plate, our cream cheeses and our smoked salmon, now we kind of just get to decorate the plate with everything else that we have, adding kind of little piles all around to make it look, again, organized chaos, thoughtful but composed, but still have some organic movement throughout the platter. So I'll start with a little fresh dill. We'll lay down some tomatoes, a nice big lemon wedge. And with the tomatoes, you can use heirloom slices. I just like the colors of these, but you could use cherry tomatoes, really any kind of tomato variety that you like. You can put in some sliced cucumber, a few piles of chopped onion. If you're worried about how all of this board is going to smell, you can always omit the chopped onion. It is a little bit of a strong scent, but it does go really well. Sliced egg. Capers, of course. Fill in the blank areas with a couple lemon wedges. Then to finish this platter off, I just drizzle with a little olive oil across the entire thing. And a little cracked pepper. And a few more sprigs of dill. And you're ready to go. Okay, so next up we have probably the easiest recipe that I could offer. It's a dill dip in a bread bowl. It's actually my mom's recipe. All of my friends that have come over for parties always look forward to it, and literally couldn't be easier. So we are gonna start. It's 4 ingredients. We have Hellmann's mayonnaise, Cabot sour cream, minced onion, and dill. Okay, so we're gonna start by adding equal parts mayonnaise and sour cream. You can kind of flex this recipe so you can either make as little or as much as you want. So now that we have our mayo and sour cream mixed together, our base is all set. One really great thing about this dip is that it's great for a make-ahead recipe. In fact, the longer it sits over the course of 24 hours, the better the flavors have a chance to meld, and it tastes much better if you make it the day before. So a little tip there. So now we're gonna add our minced onion and our dill. So to be clear, you want to use minced onion. You don't want to use an onion powder because the onion powder can be a little granular and can kind of overpower the dip. So if you use the minced onion, the onion flakes have a chance to absorb some of the moisture in the dip, and then creates a really nice onion flavor. And with this, there's kind of no rhyme or reason. You can add it to taste, so you can always start with a little bit less and then keep adding if you want a little bit more of a stronger flavor. I like a lot of onion and a lot of dill, so I tend to add quite a bit, probably half of this container. And again, you really just add it in and then mix it together and then taste it and see if you want to make any adjustments. Couldn't be any easier. So now that we have the base of our dip all ready, we can set that aside and we'll work on our bread bowl. So I got this bread loaf. It's a round loaf you can find in the bakery section of a Hannaford's. And I grabbed some Henkel's knives from Kohl's. You're definitely gonna want a sharp knife when you're cutting into this, just so that you get, you're not fighting with the bread as you're cutting it. So we'll start and you just cut a hole right around the top, and then you can pull out the inside. With all of the bread that's remaining around, you want to kind of dig that out and separate it into rough pieces, and we'll use those pieces to dip into the bread. take your dip out of the fridge, you can put it right into the bowl and assemble right on a cutting board. You can put your bread pieces around and your top on the side. And then for a gluten-free option, you can serve with crudité. Here I have some broccoli, some peeled rainbow carrots, and some endive. And you're ready to go.